Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The Democratic debate, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. In just a few moments, Donald Trump will analyze what happened last night. But as Mr. Trump might say, Hillary Clinton won. That I can tell you. She destroyed her main competition, Bernie Sanders, on the gun issue. Senator Sanders from Vermont, a gun-loving state, has not aggressively fought for gun control, something the left fervently wants.
Senator Sanders did vote 5 times against the Brady bill. Since it was passed, more than 2 million prohibited purchases have been prevented. He also did vote, as he said, for this immunity provision. Everybody else has to be accountable, but not the gun manufacturers. And we need to stand up and say enough of that.
The play here is this. If the federal government ever allows lawsuits against gun makers, that would destroy the entire industry, as liberal lawyers would sue them into bankruptcy. That's how the left wants to get around the Second Amendment, just so you know. On other issues, the debate was a stalemate. But I couldn't understand the lack of foreign policy questions by CNN. I mean, Mrs. Clinton owns much of the foreign policy debacle that has unfolded. But questions about ISIS, for example, were few.
I will do everything that I can to make sure that the United States does not get involved in another quagmire like we did in Iraq.
We don't want American troops on the ground in Syria. What I said was we had to put together a coalition.
Now, whenever you hear the word coalition, you know nothing will be done. Nothing. That's code. Kind of like comprehensive immigration reform. That's code for amnesty. Last night, it was apparent that neither Sanders nor Clinton have any intention of aggressively confronting ISIS, just like President Obama. On the economy, however, none of the Democrats on stage would criticize President Obama directly, but all of them are not happy about the situation.
Middle class of this country is collapsing. We have 27 million people living in poverty.
This inequality challenge we face, we have faced it at other points. It's absolutely right. It hasn't been this bad since the 1920s. America's been knocked down. And although we've made progress, we're standing but not running the way America needs to.
So whose fault is that? Who's been in office for 7 years? Why didn't CNN ask that follow-up question? Finally, the email deal was also played down, but here a rehearsed answer stirred up the crowd.
Let me say something that may not be great politics, but I think the Secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
They're sick and tired of hearing about it. Hey, Bernie, the email controversy goes to honesty and accountability. Maybe you haven't heard, Senator, but the FBI is investigating. I hope the Bureau is not sick and tired of it. As the Factor reported last night, the Democratic Party strongly urged the debaters behind the scenes not to attack the frontrunner, Mrs. Clinton. And they did not. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight reaction. Joining us from his campaign headquarters in New York City, Republican presidential contender Donald Trump. Now, you were tweeting during the debate. Can you tweet and watch at the same time? Is that possible?
Well, I had plenty of time because that was a pretty boring debate, but I did and picked up, like I hear, 160,000 followers last night. So a lot of people were listening, which is great as far as I'm concerned.
Did you actually watch the debate, though?
I did. I actually did. I felt I had an obligation. I would have rather have watched other things, to be honest, but I have an obligation because I may be running against one of those folks. And you know, you can't go 2 hours. It's not that long a period of time. I will say that CNN did not hit them like they hit us. They didn't make them fight. And there was very little fight in the group, Bill.
Yeah, and I just told you why. They were ordered not to by Debbie Wasserman Schultz's team. And, you know, orders is too strong a word. They were advised not to, because none of them are going to win. They all know they're not going to win. And they would like to have a role in the Democratic Party going forward. That's not like the Republican field where anybody could win. Now, I'm surprised you didn't watch the Mets get pounded last night. You did watch the 2 hours. In your opinion, did Hillary Clinton win as I believe she did?
She did what she had to do. I thought she won. I thought actually she was pretty effective. He was not strong. He gave up one of the strongest points, the emails. As you know, he gave that up, totally gave it up. It's gone, even though the FBI is investigating. And I don't know why he did it. He did it for a soundbite. And actually, she was the big beneficiary, much more so than him. He got a nice applause line, but in the end, I think he gave up a very powerful point. And it almost looked like maybe he doesn't want to win, because that was a very, very powerful thing to give up so easily.
Now, were you surprised, as I was, there was no ISIS stuff in there? I mean, we got Putin running Syria. And your solution to Syria is kind of controversial, that Putin fight it out with the various factions inside the country. But Putin, de facto is running that country now with an assist from the Iranians. Pretty much a dangerous situation. ISIS is now expanded to Afghanistan. They're all over the place, committing horror after horror after horror. And CNN doesn't really quiz them about it, doesn't ask any questions about the migrant influx into Europe, which is a catastrophe, a humanitarian catastrophe. I was surprised they stayed away from that. Were you?
And very little on the horrible treatment that our vets are receiving. Our veterans are being treated terribly, and yet they're talking about the illegal immigrants getting college education and getting all sorts of things. They don't mention the vets in terms of them getting something. So I thought they treated the vets very shabbily, frankly, and I think that's a shame. We have to start taking care of our vets properly. But that wasn't brought up. Black Lives Matter, they asked a couple of the people, but when it got to Hillary, she never answered that question, which was very
yeah, we have a segment on that tonight, interestingly enough, later on in The Factor. Now, let's say you're debating Hillary Clinton. All right, so it's Trump, and I think you could charge for that one. I think you could charge money for that one. That could be like a Mayweather fight on pay-per-view. Are you going after her personally? Are you going to say, listen, your personal life and your controversies one after the other disqualify you for being president? Are you going to go that far?
Well, I think I'd certainly be talking about the emails. I don't know if I'd go totally personally, but I would be talking very strongly about the emails. You wouldn't see me doing what Bernie Sanders did last night and basically just say, hey, it's okay, we're tired of hearing about it. It's a very serious charge. People's lives have been destroyed over what happened. If you look at Petraeus, if you look at, so many other people, their lives have been destroyed for doing just a tiny fraction of what she did. So I would certainly go after that. I think the Democrats are, frankly, I think they're protecting her, whether it's the prosecutors
no
or whoever, but they are protecting her.
I think we have to wait before we convict Mrs. Clinton on television, as you just did, for the FBI to weigh in, because it is a serious investigation. We call for the FBI to do it. They stepped up and they are doing it, so let's wait and see. But there's no question that throughout her career, Hillary Clinton has been involved with one after the other after the other. I want to know why she didn't respond to the emails that said security in Benghazi was terrible. And that's what, that's a pretty simple deal. Why did you ignore that? And we haven't gotten an answer to that.
You had that, and then you go back further into the career. You had Whitewater, and everybody thought that was going to be catastrophic, and they just basically they escaped with that one. I mean, there's a lot of things to go after. Nobody went after her last night, and I think, frankly, that maybe CNN, they could have been told not to do it. But when we were debating, they were asking, well, Mr. Trump, but there was a much different kind of a debate. They were saying, Mr. Trump, so-and-so said this. How do you respond? And, I'm talking about somebody to my right or to my left, and it was really like, they want to pit one against the other.
Yeah, the CNN.
No, but they didn't do that last night.
No, I know that.
They didn't do that last night.
So are you saying now that CNN was in the tank, that they made an editorial decision to be easier on Democrats than on Republicans? Is that what you're saying tonight?
Well, maybe the Democrats and, headed by whoever might be heading it, maybe they said this is the way we want it and we insist on doing it this way. I mean, frankly,
you think the
what
Democrats
they did with the
dictated to
Republicans
CNN? You think the Democrats told CNN what they were going to do? That's a pretty tough charge.
I think that's very possible. No,
really?
No, I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't see anything wrong with it even. I think they, look, the way they spoke with us, it was pitting one into the other. Everything was like, this one said that. How do you respond, Mr. Trump?
But there was more to work with there, though. There was more. You guys had been back and forth, so let's be fair about it. But your accusation, I don't know if maybe that's too strong a word, that the Democratic Party dictated terms of the debate to CNN, that's a pretty strong accusation.
It was a much different debate charge. If you look at what happened with us, and if you look at what happened, and by the way, I thought Anderson Cooper did an excellent job. But in that case, they were asking questions, they were given answers. In our case, it was like a reality show.
Right.
Okay, if you want to know the truth, and that's what happened. And frankly, I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it was a very different way of doing a debate.
Continuing now with Donald Trump's quest to become president. Last Saturday in Georgia, he said this when asked about his popularity.
Personally, what's the secret of my popularity? Honestly, it's my looks. I'm very handsome. That's the only thing I can think of right now.
Rejoining us now from his headquarters in New York City, Donald Trump. That's from the Joe Namath playbook, is it not?
Well, we're just having fun. The question was asked, why are you doing so well? And I just sort of thought that would be fun. Every once in a while, we can have a little bit of fun.
I loved it. I think that's what separates you from the other people. Now, Ben Carson, the latest Fox News poll out yesterday. He's right on your heels. I think it's 24-23. You're beating him. Would you vote for Ben Carson for president if you weren't in the race? Would you support him?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Good man. He's been very nice to me, very respectful and nice, and I've also been very nice to him. We have so far gotten along very well. Every once in a while, I want him to say something bad so I can go after him, but he's been so nice, I can't do that. Very hard.
If it comes down to, after the CNBC debate in a couple of weeks, the field's going to winnow. I'm not going to say who I think is going to be in the top five, but it would probably be five guys, and Carly Fiorina, I think she'll make the cut. Then it'll become more back and forth because you have to best your competitors. So what's Ben Carson's weakness?
Well, it's a lack of experience. He is experienced in certain things, but certainly in terms of negotiating with China and all of these countries that have been ripping us off for so many years, they're just ripping us so badly, you have no idea. You have no idea even, Bill. And I am the best at that. I deal with them all the time. I've beaten them so many times in terms of private enterprise. Right upstairs, we have people, the biggest banks in the world, in this building from China. That's what I do. I mean, I do that. That's what I do for a living, and I do great with it. And Ben doesn't have that kind of experience.
Okay.
And by the way, unless you turn things around from a trade standpoint and all of those deals, this country is going to go down, Bill, because we're losing a fortune.
Your unfavorable rating is high, highest of all the Republican candidates, about 50% in some polls. Do you have a plan to bring that down, to make people like you more? Do you have a plan?
Well, I also are number one in leadership by far, by a factor of 2 and 3, if you saw that poll that just came out. And some people don't love me, but I get the highest marks in leadership. I get by far the highest marks on the economy. You know, there's some pretty important categories.
I understand that, but
if
just
you
the
go
people.
up to New Hampshire,
Are you worried about the people who don't? Are you going to try to persuade them to like you? And if so, how are you going to do that?
well, every place I go where I spend time, New Hampshire, Iowa, South Carolina, you saw those polls come out today. They're phenomenal, not only leading by 20 and 25 points, but I do very well in favorability. So where they get to know me, where they, come for speeches and we all get to know each other, I do very well in the favorability.
So it's retail
I haven't been able
politics
to
is
do
going
that
to be able to do it.
nationwide yet, but that's happening.
Now,
I think we'll be able to do it. I think leadership is very important. I think the leadership poll is the most important, to be honest. And on that, I'm double digits ahead of everyone else. In fact, 2 or 3 times in some cases ahead of everybody else. And I think leadership today is going to be really the most important thing.
Okay. Now, you are well aware that some people feel that you're an entertainer and not a serious candidate. Saturday Night Live has got you now signed on to come over to do a show in November. And Hispanics are real mad now at NBC. They don't want you to host the show. Any reaction to that?
No reaction at all. I mean, I think you saw the poll in Nevada where I'm leading with Hispanics. I'm doing very well with Hispanics. I think I'll win with Hispanics, which will surprise a lot of people.
What makes you feel that way? What
What
about your message is going to make Hispanic Americans vote for you?
because I'm bringing back jobs to this country. I'm taking it away from China and Japan and everybody else, and they know. Plus, I have tens of thousands over the years of Hispanics, Mexicans, Hispanics working for me. I have thousands of them right now working for me, and believe me, they like me a lot. They're doing great. They're making great salaries. They like me very much. You know, the radio hosts in New York, the Hispanic, they say they really like Trump.
Muy
and
bien.
I think I'm going to win that vote.
El Trump, muy bien. Saturday Night Live, what if they start mocking you? I mean, well, you know, they're definitely going to do the hair deal. If I were you, I'd wear your hat on that show, the whole show, so they couldn't get the hair.
Well, you know, I actually hosted it 10 years ago, and Lorne Michaels called me up the other day. He said, I'd love to have you host, and I agreed to it because it's an honor. I did 60 Minutes last week. That was an honor. My stablemate was Vladimir Putin, and we did very well.
Yeah.
That was the highest rating in a long time, and I think Saturday Night Live will be a lot of fun.
But never forget, the biggest honor in your life is being on The Factor. Can't forget that.
That is true. There's no question about it. Number one.
Donald Trump,
That's
everyone.
True.
Thank you very much, as always. Weekdays at Bernie segment tonight. Let's get right to the purveyor of BernardGoldberg.com, who joins us from North Carolina. So I was surprised that foreign policy questions were scant, S-E-A-N-T, in the CN
You're
debate.
right.
Were you? Were you surprised?
I'm not sure if I was surprised, but you're right in your analysis. Look, do you know how conservatives who are critics of the media are always complaining that they want the moderator to ask questions that Republican primary voters want asked? Well, that's what Anderson Cooper did, just on the other side. He asked the kind of questions that liberal Democratic primary voters want asked. And that's why almost all of the questions were about liberal domestic policy. And you ready for this? 19% of the time spent last night was on foreign policy. Let me give you three very quick examples. We heard a lot about climate change last night, but much less about ISIS or about the Iraq nuclear deal or about
the Iran nuclear deal.
The Iran nuclear deal,
Right.
thank you. The Iran nuclear deal or about the mess in Syria. If Vladimir Putin was watching last night, you know he has to be rooting for a Democratic victory next year.
But
That's
let me stop you there, because I just want to add a little perspective here. Neither Clinton nor Sanders, and you correct me if you have a different particular, want any part of those questions. They don't want any part of them.
Exactly.
Good.
I totally agree with that.
Good. Go ahead.
But a journalist has a different obligation from the candidates.
That's right.
Right. Okay. There was lots and lots of talk about income inequality. Not a peep from the candidates or from Anderson Cooper about how dysfunctional behavior leads to poverty, which contributes to income inequality. Because liberals, whether they're liberal candidates or liberal journalists, don't like to talk about dysfunctional behavior.
No judgments.
No judgment,
Nope.
like 15-year-old girls having babies.
You bet.
And finally, there was lots and lots of talk about big government and free, I'm putting the word in quotation marks, free stuff. I'm listening to the debate and I'm thinking, these people, these candidates, make the Occupy Wall Street crowd look like a bunch of right-wing nuts. And the audience didn't want to hear about Benghazi. They didn't want to hear about it. That's why only 19% of the questions, or of the time rather, was spent on foreign policy.
That's right. And I just thought she's the former Secretary of State for, oh my God. And by the way,
like I say, journalists have different obligations than political
Right. And I don't know why Cooper didn't do it. I mean, I can't tell you. Now, by the way, on the free stuff front, you're not getting any free stuff. Okay? So I'm not getting any free stuff.
We're not getting any,
Right.
but all this free stuff. By the way, a moderator might say, Mr. Sanders, Bernie Sanders, that isn't free college education. Somebody's paying for it.
Somebody got to pay for it.
Unless the professors are working for free and the janitors are working for free.
If I were in moderating that debate last night, I would have handed Bernie Sanders a brochure to Venezuela. Okay? I say, you like socialism, Bernie? Here. I know it's not too close to Vermont, but you can get a plane down there. Go see how it's working out.
I was wondering if his middle name was Che.
He's got a big poster, Bernie. Got a big Che poster. All right? All right, and it's the billionaires.
I know.
Real quick. Did you notice a change in Trump's demeanor tonight? I mean, much calmer guy.
I did. And you know what I'm thinking? I mean, first of all, I know Donald Trump. He's a nice person. I think he's acted not very well I think he's much too thin-skinned and much too mean-spirited against people who say things about him. But after watching the debate last night, I'm starting to like Donald Trump. and I'm also thinking that when he behaves the way he's been behaving recently, his poll numbers would be even higher.
That's what I'm trying to
If
tell him.
he had done that from the jump.
And we got to get a Hillary-Trump debate, even if he doesn't get the nomination.
That's
you got to put that together.
That's pay-per-view. That's pay-per-view.
There you go.
No question about
Bernie
that.
Goldberg, everybody.